Hey guys, I'm gonna do a second video on how to set up your slow fall jigs. Okay, a lot of people come to the shop, they ask me, Ivan, how do I set up a slow fall jig? I've made a video previously on how to set up a micro jigs, and the slow fall jigs are a bit different because the jig size are a bit bigger. So this is my way I do it. I'm not right all the time. You will find your own way, but this is the way I do it. Okay, so I'll just show you guys what you probably need. One of these big Kahara pliers. Okay, my trusty Meho box. Show you guys, this is where I keep all my split rings and everything. Okay, so what I do is I usually pull 2 split rings out and also a silver barrel. Okay, I'll teach you guys a very handy tip where I always put a carabiner. Okay, so I can put all my my assist hooks all together. See, so you don't have to get a carabiner. You can also get maybe like a key ring, you know, like a circular key ring or something like this. Just little tips. When you start jigging a lot, you come up with little small hacks that helps you with your jigging. So this is where I put all my assist hooks. See, small assist hooks, big assist hooks. So the main thing about assist hooks, right, they come in different sizes and different lengths. Okay, 2 centimeters, if you can see, 2 centimeters here, 1 centimeter, you know, some of them come like 3 centimeters. Okay, I will talk to you guys roughly about assist hooks. The important thing about assist hooks is not about how big your assist hook really is, because sometimes we are all using jigging rods, right? And it's not really how thick your assist hook is, in my opinion. Is because the thicker the hook is, yes, it is stronger, but then you need to use a very stiff rod to set your hook. And depending on the rod you're using, most times we are using like a slow fall rod, and it's very parabolic. So even though you might use one single big hook, you might not be able to set the hook properly because it's so thick, right? It's not like needle sharp. So you really need to use a lot of force to load those hooks into the jaw of the fish. And sometimes being a parabolic rod for jigging is just not possible. So my preference is I like to run a lot of thin hooks. Okay, so first point, what assist hooks to match? I always run top and bottom. Why do I run top and bottom? Because I'll show you why anyway, but I always run top and bottom. So the first thing for me, right, is I make sure that my assist hooks do not touch each other. Okay, there's a few hacks I do. I just make sure when I do the top and bottom, I do not get my assist hooks to actually entangle. So okay, I'll start with setting up the first one, which is, let's say, the Ima gun. This is a 130 gram jig. It's not really a slow fall jig per se, but just a big jig. Okay, 130 gram jig. So I would always, like I said, run top and bottom. So I will open my split ring. Make sure you use really big size split ring pliers for the bigger split rings, because the smaller ones usually tend to open up and then they get bent and then they don't work anymore. Okay, my barrel swivel for the top. Okay. So there's a video I made on why I set it up with a barrel swivel. So that's the top split ring and the bottom split ring. Okay, so this is the bottom split ring. Okay, and I will pick, because this is a smaller jig, I will pick maybe 2 1 centimeter size hooks. Okay, so this is, like, as you can see, it's a trio 1 centimeter. I love to use trios. Trios is my favorite size. 2-0 or trio, 2-0, trio, 4-0s, they are my favorite size depending on what I use it for. Okay, so this is 1 centimeter. It says 1 centimeter. Okay, so I would do this again. hook, and this is on the bottom hook. I love this Aima Ganzai. They are one of the my bread and butter jigs when I go jigging, like maybe 1770 and stuff like that. Okay, so this is for the bottom hook. So that's how I set up my first jig. Okay, why do I set up 2 sets of assist hooks and not 1? Okay. Imagine if I would just had an assist hook on the first jig, right? Mainly, I tell people when you want to use a single assist hook, make sure it's more than half, but we'll just use this for example for the time being. Look, when the jig falls like that, it's sweet when the fish comes and take the jig. It is covered, but what happens when the jig falls this way? Sometimes the fish come and take, and there is no hook. So you actually miss quite a lot of fish. But when you have 2 sets of hooks, no matter how the jig falls, the fish takes, there'll be a hook underneath. If it falls this way, the fish takes and they'll still be hooked, okay? So that is why I run 2 sets of hooks, always. I just find that the hookup rate is way better. Also, especially when you got a big long jig, like, you know, things like the cutlass jig, long ones like that, you really want there to be as much hook exposure when the fish strike as possible, see? So no matter how my jig falls, there is always hooks on my jig, okay? Especially on the big ones. Okay, and people say, Ivan, yeah, but I put 2 set of jigs, I put 2 set of hooks and I always get snagged at the bottom. Well, first thing first, in Brisbane, right, or in Australia, most of the ground is really sand, and then you got small little rubble patches. It's not that bad, to be honest. And also when you, like for me, we fish in the Solomons or Maldives, right, and it's all volcanic rock. So once the jig touches the floor, you're snagged, okay? So in Australia, to be honest, it's not that bad, okay? So you can definitely run 2 hooks. But the other thing is, if your line and your jig, if you use the right jig and your line is right at the bottom, like your line is going straight down the boat, the chances of actually hooking up is quite rare because you're pulling it this way. But if your line is in an angle because you're using too thick a line and your jig is doing this, there's more chances of it being hooked up. So make sure you use the right line, make sure you use the right jig weight for whatever depth you're jigging. I'm saying this double rigging, right, I use for big jigs. For small jigs that are really small, like your 20, 40, 60 gram micro jigs, it's fine because the fish will just engulf the whole jig. But for big jigs like this, sometimes the fish is not going to engulf the whole jig, so it's very important to run 2 sets of assist hooks, okay? I will set up this big one, this longer one, and show you what I would use. So something like that, I'll use my favorite trios. I would actually use, maybe let's say I'll use a 2 centimeter one, okay, for the top. Okay, I'll show you another hack too that you guys can use to prevent snagging. Well, theoretically it's supposed to prevent snagging, but I don't know if yeah, okay. So example, with the longer jig, I will use a longer hook. This is actually 2 centimeters. I will set this up again for you guys. Same thing, barrel swivel. See the difference in length? This is actually longer by a centimeter, okay? So, this one up, jig, barrel swivel, and the split ring. It's very important to use big split ring pliers for big split rings, yeah? Because the small ones usually just give way and you just stuffed up like a $50 pair of good split ring pliers, okay? I love this Sea Falcon jigs too, right? They glow in the belly, they look like ribbon tail, what is that? Ribbon tail fish thingy. They catch so much fish, these things. Okay. Oh, You can use whatever length assist hooks you want. A lot of people actually custom make their own lengths for really long split rings, because I think in the market there might be like 3 or 4 centimeters, and sometimes it's just not long enough. So some people actually custom make their own assist hooks to yeah, to suit this kind of big. Okay, so I've got 2 centimeters because that's the biggest I've got. Actually, I want to show you guys this this setup. Okay, so there is also another set of assist hooks that I found that Zesta actually make. Okay, so they are actually called the claw hole tune, the Zesta. Okay, so the assist hooks are really quite special because I'll show you. Okay, so this claw tune thingies, you see, like, sorry, see, the assist cord is actually pretty stiff. If you have a look, the assist cord is pretty stiff, so it actually keeps the hooks shut all the time. So when you're actually bouncing the bottom, less chances of it actually hooking up. Okay, see, so it's very different from like the Shout. You know, look, this is really soft and, you know, movable, and this is actually quite stiff. All right, so usually the stiff one I would run under at the bottom, because I think that the bottom is where I'm always going to hit the ground. So I'll always use the one with the stiffest assist cord. I think Zesta is the only one that makes them, I'm not sure. So, you know, the Japanese are so good, eh? They make everything for a reason. So assist cords are not just assist cords, assist hooks are not just assist hooks. There is a reason for everything they do. So okay, so this is how I would do my knife jig. I would like this to be a bit longer. Usually I'll probably run 2 of this, but I just wanted to show you guys the difference. You can also make your own assist, as long as these 2 hooks do not touch each other. See, you'll be sweet. See? As long as these 2 hooks do not touch each other. So even with this, I will probably be able to get away with 1 2 centimeter and 1 centimeter. So as long as they don't touch each other, it should be sweet. Okay. You know. Okay, so that's how I set up my big slow fall or my big jigs. Okay. A lot of people ask me, so Ivan, I want to go one big single hook. Why do you go a set of 4 hooks? You know, look, when you got one single big assist hook, you got, and you hit a 20 kilo fish, you got 1 hook holding 20 kilos. When I actually drop this jig and the fish takes the my jig per se, it will be most likely at least caught up in 2 hooks, and the last stinger might get him on the body. So I've got 20 kilo spread out among 3 hooks or 2 hooks, which is each hook is only holding 10, 15 kilos or 5 kilos. Even if I got all 4 hooks in the fish, 4 hooks are holding 5 kilo each. So sometimes it's better to actually spread out the weight among all 4 hooks rather than on one big single hook that's carrying 20 kilos. I'd rather have 4 hooks carrying 20 kilos than have 1 hook carrying 20 kilos. And also because I was talking to you guys previously about a big single hook being too thick, and then you're trying to set it because it's a thick gauge, because you need it to hold a 20 kilo fish, then you need the rod to be stiff, and using a stiff rod might not dance your jig properly. So when you use a softer rod, you might actually have to go more assist hooks. Okay, so if you look at my hooks, they are really thin gauge because I really want that penetration. Okay, so there's nothing wrong to run thin gauge hooks. It has to really match your tackle on the top half. Okay, so let's see if we can do a 3 centimeter and a 2 centimeter on a feet flip. This is a pearly killing machine, this jigs. Okay, so let's try. I'll do another one. Okay, so this one's already got a split ring there. I'll just put another swivel out. I really find using 2 split rings, the hookup rate is really a lot higher. For me, that is my I prefer to use it this way. And then there are people that like to use one single split ring on the top, but this is I prefer to use it this way. Okay, so I'm not right all the time. This is what I do, and you guys will find what's the best for you guys. Okay, so this is how I set it up. So we're using a 2 centimeter and a 3 centimeter at the bottom, and then the barrel swivel on the top. In my previous video, I actually mentioned why we put a barrel swivel. So if you watch that, you will know why I put a barrel swivel on the top. Okay. So, done skis. So that is done. Let's try to move this forward so you can see it. See? So you got hooks in the front, hooks on the top, and hooks at the bottom. And as long as they don't touch each other, they will not get a tangle, and you'll be sweet. Okay, thanks guys for watching this video. This is the way I rig up my jigs. Why I love 2 assist hooks too. I feel that, you know, when the jig is falling through the water, it's like an octopus, man. Like anything that comes even close to the jigs will just get snagged. Like, you know, sometimes fish sometimes do not just eat a jig. Sometimes the jig might be in their territory and they use their body to, you know, like they do a body slam to get like an intruding fish out of the way. And sometimes if a fish just do a body slam, very likely he's gonna get hooked up. Okay, so that is why I use two sets of assist hooks instead of 1. Okay, so thanks for watching. I'll try to make more videos for you guys. We got all these things in the shop. So if you guys need to ask us questions or whatever, send me a PM on Facebook or Instagram or something, and we will help you as much as we can. All right, thanks for watching guys. I'll see you guys in the shop.